Hey guys, so I posted a photo or a graphic showing the probability of a man by the name of Ehud Barak of showing up on the Epstein list. And people asked me in the comment section, sweet, like why post this? What's the point to post this? Because they're under the impression, a lot of people, live in America, Jews who live in America who support Israel, they're under the impression that Ehud Barak is a good person, a hero of Israel, former prime minister of Israel. Anybody who's in Israel is automatically good. Folks, the reason I posted this was because Ehud Barak is the person responsible for organizing, facilitating, and funding all of the what's called Kaplanistim protests, the Kaplan protests you see. Everything to do with going against judicial reform in Israel, everything to do with, not that I'm a big fan of Bibi, everything to do with going against the will of the people of Israel. Again, the folks that are protesting at those protests, the Kaplan protests, they literally think this, because I've spoken to some of them, or those who align with them, let's say. They literally think that Bibi divided Israel, right? Or they literally think that they themselves represent 50% of Israel. They're so tone deaf to their own existence, or to the reality on the ground, they don't understand that they represent the best 10% of Israel. They don't understand that. They think they represent 50%. It's funny. I've spoken to some of them. Just 1 second. I've spoken to some of them. And they actually represent 50% of the block that they live in. Somewhere in Tel Aviv, in Tzfon Tel Aviv. They don't represent 50% of Israel. They represent about 10% maximum of Israel. The rest of the 90% of Israel are, either right-wing, traditional, religious, or even if they're centrist, or even slightly center-left, they don't support this Kaplan stuff. This, quote-unquote demokratia protest, which they don't represent democracy. They think they do, but they don't. So, my friends, and by the way, Ehud Barak not only facilitates these, protests and funds them, he also is the go-between for funding that comes in from people like George Soros, Obama, etc., my friends. And my friends, by the way, those guys, Ehud Barak, the people who fund him, they're all connected with this whole Epstein thing. Unfortunately. Yes. And most of them are not Jews, my friends. Most of them are not Jews. They want to see Israel as it is collapse. They want to see Israeli society be, inflamed. Again, they don't care. They never cared. Because they're Bolsheviks, right? They don't care that 90% of Israel doesn't agree with their crap. Right? Whether it's, the ones in Israel, the ones who operating in Israel, or the ones outside of Israel, non-Jews, they don't care that 90% of Israelis don't agree with their crap. That they just want to, live their lives as proud Jews and proud, whether they're religious or traditional or even secular, but pro their own country, These people who are trying to do this, they don't care, okay? They complain about others not serving in the army. All the while, they themselves in Tel Aviv, they say just as many people, secular Jews in Tel Aviv, get, exemptions from psychiatrists as Haredi Jews get, right? Deferments. My friends, these are not people who are operating in good faith, okay? So, to answer your question, why did I post this stuff about Ehud Barak? And that he was linked to Epstein? Because, folks, people like this, they are Jews in name only. They are the entity that we're battling, the entity that it was foretold that we would battle right before the Geulah, redemption, okay? This is who we're battling. The Zohar says that the Erev Rav prevent the Geulah, the redemption, more than anybody, even possibly the Arabs. The Arabs are a clear enemy. They're there for another reason, right? They're not here to necessarily prevent the Geulah. They're here to be a thorn in our side and Hashem's whipping stick and all the rest of it to send us a message. But preventing the actual redemption, that is the job of the people who have Jewish last names but are anything but. People like Ehud Barak. Folks, that is why I posted that. And some people said, people here don't know anything about Israeli politics. Folks, at this point you should learn. You shouldn't, I understand you want to support Israel and all the rest of it, and you don't live in Israel. It's been almost 2 years since October 7th. At this point, we have this wonderful thing called the internet. Get on the internet and learn. By the way, guys, Bibi Netanyahu, again, I'm not his biggest fan, but for other reasons. He said in a speech in the Knesset that the media is all in the tank for Ehud Barak. They invite him to their shows, but they don't want asking questions about the Epstein thing. He mentioned it in the Knesset, in the Parliament of Israel. The current Prime Minister of Israel mentioned it, my friends. So he goes, meanwhile, they want to indict me for champagne and cigars during a war. They want to drag me to court. That's what he said. So, my friends, it doesn't take much to learn about what's going on in Israel, in Israeli society. Israel is not a monolith, okay? And if you think so, you're no better informed than the very anti-Semites who think that Israel's a monolith, okay? Who think the Mossad is a monolith, who think the Shabak is a monolith, and that the Israeli army, top brass is a monolith, which it's not, right? My friends, educate yourself just a little bit. You don't have to become an expert, but just a little bit, and you'll start to understand what's going on in Israel. And there's a big revolution in a good way. And the people who've been ruling Israel for the past, let's say 40 or even 50 years, they're shaking in their space boots. And they don't want to let go. Just like here, the deep state doesn't want to let go. In Israel, they're more visible. They're just, the Erev Rav apparatus. Liberal lefty, as our rabbi friend likes to call it, right? Who've been poisoning Israeli society against religion and against Torah and against tradition. And by the way, friends, you see, Israeli society, despite all the attempts of these fruitcakes, has gone the other way, has gone towards God, towards tradition, towards Torah, Baruch Hashem. So, that's just a simple thing of it. Goes deeper than that, but any questions, guys? I'm right here. Lala Tov.